Hello everyone and welcome. This tutorial is going to show you how to utilize reference images in Blender. Reference images make modeling so much easier and more realistic because you can get the proportions right. So let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is we're just going to minimize this collection and hide it just to keep things clean. Now we're going to right click and go new collection, and we'll rename that to ref_images and hit enter. Now with that collection selected, and make sure you're in object mode, push Shift A, we're going to add an image and reference. Now this is going to bring up the file select screen, which you won't be able to see just because of the screen recorder that I'm using. But once you find your file, select it and go load reference image. And there we go. Now the one thing you'll notice is that the image gets imported facing the camera. So if you're at this angle, it would end up facing you. So since this is the front view, what we want to do is be in front view ourselves. So we're going to Control Z to undo that. And now we're going to push the back tick button, which is that one to the left of the number 1 on your keyboard. That's going to bring up our view, and we're going to go front. Now when we go Shift A, image, reference, select the same image, and now it's facing the front. Now what I like to do is as soon as you import anything, push F2, rename it. We're going to call this one front, and there we go. Now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to do the side now. So bring up our view, go to the right, Shift A, image, reference, and we'll select that file. There we go. Again, F2, we're going to call this side, enter. And the last one we're going to do is the back view. But first, I'm going to grab our front reference image, push G and Y to move it along the Y axis, and we're just going to move it out in front. Okay, now bring up our views. We'll go back, Shift A, image, reference, and there we go. F2 to rename that to back. Enter. All right, and now let's set these up. So we're going to grab our back reference image. We're going to push G to grab it, Y to just move it on the Y axis, and we're just going to move it to the side of that one. Now what we want to do here is make it so that we can, no matter what angle we look at, we can see the reference image that we need and be able to work on it comfortably. So to do that, we're going to select the front image here. And if we go into reference image, or I guess it's what they call it, object data properties. Here, let me slide this out for you. There's a whole bunch of options here. Offset, depending on how you like to model, offset makes it so that the lines, instead of centering it around the cursor, it moves it up. So let's say you wanted the bottom line along the grid. You can change the Y offset to 0, and now it'll be above the grid rather than splitting it. But for our sake, we're good with it just being there. Some of these options we're going to go through right now. Another one that we're going to do in a little bit is opacity, and obviously it's what it sounds like. I like to have an object in here when I select the opacity so that I can see how opaque I need it, because some images you're going to want to go far down, other images you're not going to want to go as far if they're a little darker. Now to set this up, we're going to select our front image, and over here where it says side, we're going to change that to front. This makes it so that you can only see the front of the image and not the back, and we'll do the same thing for the back image. Now you still have to click front because this is the front of the image and this is the back of the image. If you do click back, it's not a big deal. If you want to leave it there, you just have to rotate this around, but you just want to see the front of the image. So it's easier just to click front and off we go. Now the other option that we're going to do is we're going to turn off perspective. And what that's going to do is the only view that we'll be able to see it, since we're on our back reference image, is the back view. And there we go. And now we'll do the same thing with the front image. Turn off perspective, and there we go. Now when we go to the front view, there it is. Now the reference images are set up, So now what I like to do is to change the opacity of all of them. And to do this, we're going to turn back on our collection here. And then one by one, we're going to choose how transparent we want each image. So for our image here, the side view, we don't really need that to be transparent because we're going to kind of build with it. I'm going to turn it down a little just because I don't like it being that white. There we go. Now we're going to select our front image and we're going to change our view to the front. And we'll turn on opacity and we'll turn it down until we can see the object enough. Not so much that like you don't want it down way down here. Actually, this one kind of works because it's a bright image. But you don't want it too low. Otherwise, you're going to, if you zoom in, you're not going to see what's going on. So somewhere around maybe 0.25, 0.2. That works for us. And then we'll click the back. We'll change our view to back. And we'll do the same. Which you could just type it in, but I like using the slider, get it to exactly where you want. So about right there. Now the last thing we want to do is make it so that these reference images aren't selectable, because you'll notice as you start going, especially if you're in one of these other views, you're going to end up selecting the image and not the object. So to do this, up here in our collections, we're going to turn on the filters and we're going to go to selectable, which is that little arrow. And now these are all selectable, so the whole collection, we're going to turn that off. So now you can't select the images, you can only select the object that's behind it. And now you're ready to start modeling. It's always great to at least have some reference images up. The more you can get, the better, because you can have top views, bottom views, depending on what you're making. Depending on if you're making complicated objects, it's also good to have maybe a web page open, or some people use a program called PureRef, and you kind of make a collage of reference images so that you know where details should go, different angles, things like that. If you guys want me to make a tutorial on using PureRef, let me know in the comments. I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you next time.